Howdy, everyone. Long time no chat. We are back, freshly rejuvenated from our amazing jaunt to Los Angeles for the Demon Slayer World Tour premiere. Wow, what a great weekend that was. I think it's safe to say we're all feeling pretty great, and we are definitely riding the high, although we are just about to jump right back on board the pain train. So that's the story of my life. As always, it's Emily, and today I am joined by Bryan and Hannah.
Hey, what's up, y'all? We are on the Mugen train now, as they say. So ready to hop in, of course. Have the vision of Thomas the Mugen train in my head as well. So don't forget about that, folks.
Hey, everyone. I literally had so much fun last weekend that I made myself sick. So I'm here and I'm still reeling. I feel like that was a fever dream and that it didn't actually happen because that was absolutely wild. But we're here, we're making it, and now we're back on the pain train, as Emily said.
It's time. I didn't want to do this, but we have to do this. So we're just going to go ahead and jump right in. Let's just rip off the Band-Aid. When we last left you, it turned out that Enmu had fused with the Mugen Train, making them one and the same. But Inosuke now is wide awake after Nezuko's intervention. Yay, Nezuko. He springs into action, and Enmu transforms parts of the train into tentacle-like entities, which are kind of gross. Inosuke begins slashing as though there's nothing in his way, and then we come up on a favorite moment. Nezuko is trying to fight. She's in a little bit of trouble, and Zenitsu shows up to help save her, even though he's in his unconscious state. What were your thoughts on this scene, and how do you think it continues to set up their friendship?
Oh, knight in shining armor. Knight in shining armor Zenitsu is right there. Like, I'm loving watching Nezuko fight. Like, she's working really hard. She's getting it done. But, eventually it catches up to her. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, Tanjiro's not around to save her, like, as they usually do, the two of them. But this time, it's Zenitsu's time to save her, which is like, yes, save her, because I'm a big Nezu Zen shipper. But I think that, it was really cool. It was really well done. Of course, this whole time that Zenitsu's asleep, I'm thinking about this. I'm like, yo, like, you're really good when you're asleep. Come on, like, start jumping into action here. And it was really fun to see that. And it's continuing to set up their friendship, and if we're talking about Nezuko and Zenitsu here, maybe a little more someday. Fingers crossed on that one.
Yeah, obviously this is going to be one of my favorite moments. For those of you who are just listening, you should have seen my face. I looked in like spectacularly close to Anya when she's like waku waku, because this is just one of those great moments for Zenitsu. I feel like it definitely is, again, like Hannah said, his knight in shining armor moment, but now you're getting to see this new dynamic of not necessarily Tanjiro, Zenitsu and Inosuke, but now you get Nezuko, Inosuke, and Zenitsu in the mix, and now it's starting to build these other dynamics between the rest of the squad. And I mean, just like seeing him in his dream state carry Nezuko through the peach grove on his back, I would expect nothing less from this man to dive right into action for his true love.
Oh, his true love. I think I do agree with that. They have a little ways to go. I think that's why I chose the word friendship for now, because girl can't even really talk yet. So
but Zenitsu's convinced he's in love.
That's true. That's true, which we have seen before, but this one has stuck longer than some of the others. So, and there's something nice about even his unconscious form leaping into action immediately to protect her. It's just a really sweet moment. It's like a very it's very, very heartwarming, and it's like one of those yes, just love getting to see it. So great little moment there. Rengoku is also awake now, which is very good for our boys. He quickly slices through a number of these tentacle entities, advising that he's going to guard the last 5 cars of the train. I don't know if you've ever been on a train, but for anyone who hasn't, they're big. They can hold at least 30 to 50 people. if not more. Granted, I don't know that there were that many still on board this train, but we can safely assume that there are people on board, and he's guarding 5 cars. It's a lot of distance to be covering very quickly. And then he says that he wants Nezuko and Zenitsu to guard the front 3, and then Tanjiro and Inosuke are going to look for Enmu's neck to be able to slice it, because Rengoku says that no matter what form they take on, demons always have a neck to slice. You just need to find it. What do you think of Rengoku's plan to try to take him down?
I mean, it's a bold strategy there, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out there for him. I mean, like, could you imagine having the gall to be like, I'll take on, you know, possibly 150 plus people. You guys take these other like 60 to 90. And you're literally doing twice the work as one person. Like, excuse me? Like, how strong do you have to be able to feel confident in saying that? Like, the act of just signing yourself up for that job, props to Rengoku, because I'd be terrified.
I have like the same reaction that Tanjiro had. Like, he was like, his face was like, as he ran away. And then he's like, he's so quick to read the situation. And he's like, you're being all like goggly eyed over him, baka. Like, it was so funny. But like, honestly, you can just see how much of a leader he is and just how quickly he can read the situation. And they're also just kind of hyping up the fact that he's a Hashira, and because we've been spending this time with the squad, and like, they're really powerful and they have like so many capabilities, but Rengoku is just like on another league here. He's like, yeah, I'm just gonna do the 5 carts, like, no big deal, like, I got it. 2 people can take on 3, you know, and it's just wild to me. And I think that it's such a great plan. It uses everyone's strengths, you know, to their advantage, and it's gonna be, you know, hopefully something that takes down this demon.
100%. I think the thing that I'm most struck by in essentially this plan, or like the set of instructions that Rengoku is leaving them with, is, and I don't know why we haven't really touched on this, I don't think, in the podcast so far yet, but I'm so interested in like this Japanese obsession with like the neck slicing of like the like monsters.
Yes.
And you know, obviously it holds a very different meaning when with what we talked about with Tanjiro in the last episode, and like the dream and how to wake up from the dream. But like, strictly speaking about the monsters, in that like, it's almost as though their humanity resides in the neck, and that's the only way to free them, if that makes sense. Because it's not just in Demon Slayer, it's a huge part of Attack on Titan as well, is like slicing these necks. So I don't know if I really have. Freedom. What's up?
And freedom, of course.
In freedom, absolutely. But yeah, I don't know if I have like a whole lot more to dive into. I just think it's a really interesting trend that I probably would need to research a little bit more. Like, why is it that the neck is the focal point?
Yeah, because I remember thinking that, because like, I watched Attack on Titan before I watched Demon Slayer, and I remember the first few episodes they were talking about slicing their necks, and I was like, oh, okay, like, I'm on board with that. That feels similar. That feels right. Familiar. Okay.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting that like that's the way to take out a monster. So maybe more to come on that. Maybe we can touch back on that at some point after a little bit more research. But I was struck by it. So speaking of being focused on slicing the neck, we get some time watching Tanjiro and Inosuke kind of dive into this part of the mission. And I think that this fight really shows how well they work together. Each of them are using their own individual strengths to help the other's weaknesses. And Inosuke is the real MVP for making sure Tanjiro didn't actually slice his own neck for real, because he was starting to blur the line between dream and reality. So Inosuke fortunately came through and saved the day just in time. And then a little bit later, we see Tanjiro jump in front of Inosuke when he notices the conductor running towards them with the knife. So watching this, I would really love to call back on how they met. Tanjiro broke his ribs out of anger. Now he's placing his life on the line for Inosuke. What do you think this scene does for their friendship and teamwork, and how do you see this progressing in the future?
This is probably my second favorite like relationship outside of like Nezuko and Tanjiro because of just how much they've progressed already. I think that with having such a rough introduction to each other and turning into this where they're, like Tanjiro's putting his life on the line for Nosuke, and Nosuke didn't, put his life on the line for him, but he made sure that Tanjiro didn't die right then, and they know how each other tick. Like it's like they are almost able to communicate without speaking to each other. And even Inosuke's still like, I'm the leader, blah, blah, blah. And Tanjiro's just like, yeah, whatever, cool, okay. But he's coming up with all the ideas. And I think it's just like a really beautiful trajectory that they're going on. And it's just progressed so well. And of course, I can't wait to see more of it in the future because I think that it's a really important part of the story. And maybe we'll get some really special moments coming soon.
Who can never be sure, right? I think it's interesting because I think they kind of represent two different sides of like reality in a certain extent. Like Tanjiro represents like the emotional reality of like being as present as you can be in the current moment and trying to like support others around you. And Inosuke kind of takes this like physical form of like understanding the natural world and understanding like the physical elements and how they will like portray and manifest in your own reality. So I think it's really cool that they're kind of able to work together to create like the actual reality of like understanding like physically, no, it's not a dream, Tanjiro, like be careful, but also like Inosuke like defending him and showing him like that, hey, like you do mean something to me. And like even though like you get on my nerves a lot, sure, like I still respect you almost like a brother in a certain extent. So I think it's a really cool dynamic that they've created, being able to kind of lack or make up for each other where they're lacking.
Absolutely. And the dynamic is still fun. It's still like very playful between the two of them. And Inosuke still fancies himself in charge. So he's like, my little pupil will not die on my watch. Under my watchful boar eyes, not gonna happen.
That's a good idea. As your leader, I can say good idea.
Thank you for that.
We'll do that. And then it was my idea. We love him. He's like ridiculous, but he is a good fighter. He has those natural animal instincts and they balance each other out really well. And he is maturing very, very slowly, but surely it is happening little inch by inch. So we love our little squad. We see a theme start to take place here that seems to be quite important for the whole show. Teamwork, obviously. Even while we were focused on Inosuke and Tanjiro, Rengoku, Nezuko, and Zenitsu all were working hard to protect the passengers so that there would be no casualties. Rengoku had them working like a well-maintained train. I'll be here all week. What do you think of the overall teamwork of this squad, and how does it speak to Rengoku's leadership?
Wow. Coming out of recently COM 110, interpersonal communication, if we look at this from an academic standpoint, we can see that Rengoku just has this certain sense of authority. And like, it's not that like he, commands respect or fear out of other people. It's his presence that people just look up to a certain extent. So I think it just speaks to, the kind of fortitude and the mental strength that he has. And for people to be able to grasp his energy, like, I think it was in the very beginning that Tanjiro was like, he's a little odd, but his smell is very kind and like heartwarming. And so like, I think it just really demonstrates how Rengoku is truly one of those other pure souls in this storyline that's able to like, put people together and help them, grow and learn new things. Even though this was a very tough battle for the squad, I think that he definitely helped them understand, a new perspective on fighting demons, really.
Yeah. I think I kind of touched on it earlier with Rengoku's leadership. Like, he's just so quick to read the situation. And I can't think of any story that I've watched where we have a battle like on a moving train like this in this capacity. I can think of like chase scenes and like some fight scenes, but not like something quite like this where you've got like multiple people fighting against the same foe, but they all have like different places to be on the train. And it's really quite amazing to me that they're protecting all these people. And we're kind of focused on Tanjiro and Inosuke because they've got like the important job of actually taking the demon down with his neck. But Rengoku, Nezuko, and Zenitsu, like without them, like you're gonna take down that demon, but at what cost? With all those humans on board. So the fact that Rengoku was able to kind of come up with that plan and not just be like, I'm gonna go take the demon down, y'all figure out what to do here. But I think like a lot of Hashiras might be more like that. This is more specific to him as a person rather than it just being him a Hashira. Because like if Sanmi was there, what's gonna happen? Not to put him down, I love Sanemi, but like maybe leadership isn't one of his strengths. So I think it just kind of it makes him a very well-rounded Hashira because he's got that flame breathing, that power, but also just that ability to lead this group so well and so naturally.
I agree, and I think that we've even seen how respected he is as a leader, even amongst the rest of the Hashira too. They've all acknowledged like Rengoku can handle it. Like Shinobu even had that little conversation like, well, he says he's fine, so he's fine. He is like just a natural leader among leaders, and part of it is probably just his like super positive, matter-of-fact, punctual nature. Extraordinarily approachable. He might look like he has not a single thought behind those eyes, but that's all just part of the plan. He knows that he just is like completely reliant on instinct, but it's worked out for him. So naturally good at leading our little idiots. We love them. Good big brother figure for them. Interestingly enough, we see Enmu, the demon we slayed, cry and whine, and possibly for the first time, we don't get a sad backstory here after Tanjiro and Inosuke are able to take him down. We've talked a lot so far about the story not being about good versus evil necessarily, since there seems to be tragedy and grief across all of the different stories. But Enmu kind of just genuinely seems like a bad guy. His final moment is very, woe is me. If only I could turn back the clock and get to do this again. How could this even happen? The others have been around for hundreds of years, meaning the other highly ranked demons. Do you think this is yet another nuance that some of the demons can just be bad, kind of opposite to Tanjiro, who is purely good? I think that most of the characters are somewhere in the middle, but this one's interesting.
Yeah, I think we're getting balance to the story at this point, because we have like just kind of seen that all these demons really did just make the wrong choice when tragedy struck them. But like we're not getting that tragedy. Like he's just like, oh, each one of these, like they just were able to do this, and how dare they? It's all that brat's fault, and I can never be an upper moon, blah blah blah. And I'm like expecting this like sad, like, oh, like he was abused as a kid, like that's what we've gotten to at this point. But some people might say, oh, like that demon was just kind of written off to get to like what's to come next. But I think that it's adding that balance to the story. Maybe there do need to be some demons that are just like genuinely like they just became a demon because they were bad people, like because bad people do exist. And even like on our good side of the Slayers, like some of these people are kind of bad people as well. They're just fighting the fight in the right way as we see it. So I think that it's important when most characters can kind of be in that middle, that we still have those extremes in the story to balance things out.
Yeah, I was kind of sad we didn't get a backstory for Enmu. I think it would have been kind of cool to see, of course. But, I think also we look at it, right, like he's just a bad guy. But I think with, Enmu, maybe he's not as bad of a guy as we think. Obviously, like he killed a bunch of people, so like, you know, the scale is still pretty far to the villain side. However, right, the argument could be made that he did do these like sick and like abused children somewhat of a service by providing them at least comfortable dreams at the end of the day. And you know, a good act for malintentions, right, never really equals out. However, at least he did do something, and I think it's kind of interesting when we don't get that backstory, because we kind of just have to speculate at that point. Like, you know, you get the chance to kind of imagine where that blood demon arc came from, right? You know, what must have been his issues before he became a demon to, you know, torment others in this way. So I think it's a really interesting, you know, kind of just point we get to think about. But unfortunately, the boy did just get yonked. So
Yonked.
I didn't know if that was a word or not, so I just can't.
I think it's a word if you say it confidently. So that's how it works, right? That's how Shakespeare made like 50% of the English language. So.
Well, I mean, like 20. I mean, you can't forget about Anne Boleyn writing lyrics for him either. Women in history.
Fair. Women. Herstory, right? Okay. We're done. We're moving on.
We're stalling here.
Oh man, yeah. All right. Well, I agree. It could have been interesting to see Enmu's backstory, but I also think it's interesting that he's just kind of shallow, because that also is true of humans and demons, I think. Like there are just people that are like that. And so I don't think that it's unrealistic necessarily. But rip in peace, Enmu. We will not miss you.
Sayonara.
Sayonara. So we're a little all over the place now. We have Zenitsu, who is just out. Inosuke is like ripping out the hair of the guy who stabbed Tanjiro. Tanjiro's laying on the ground wounded. And our wonderful bright-eyed Hashira comes to help him with his injury. Yay! That's the end of the movie, right?
Okay,
Right.
so like the first thing here is like, when I was in theater watching this movie the first time, I was like, okay, like there were 3 different points where I'm like, oh, okay, like the movie's gonna end now, right? Like I was like, oh man, it's already been kind of a long movie. Like I looked at my watch and I was like, oh, all right, it should be ending soon. And there were like 3 times I did that. This was the first time I was like, okay, yeah, like, you know, should be wrapping up shortly, go home. No, I was wrong.
I didn't get the pleasure of getting to see this in movie theaters because I hadn't started watching the show yet when it was in theaters. So I actually watched it episodic when it came out on Hulu. And so I knew there was still like an episode and a half to go. So I was just like, what is supposed to happen from here? But I also was like Rengoku's been relevant, but also not extremely relevant. So like, why, like what's about to happen? I was very nervous. Like there was no music. It was very quiet. And Rengoku's just like telling Tanjiro he did a good job teaching him how to close his wound with his breath. I'm just like sitting here waiting for something to happen. Like that was me. Like since I didn't get the movie form, I was just like, something's gonna happen. There's still too much left.
Yep. For those of you who don't want pain in your lives, this is where you turn the movie off. This is like the Titanic door scene. Turn it off. Just turn it off before the iceberg. Like yes. we are full speed ahead approaching the iceberg. This is like this is rough, but it's also so good. Is it the end of the movie? Right? Wrong. It is not. Out of nowhere, after, like Hannah said, an eerie silence as Rengoku's just talking to Tanjiro, trying to help get him to heal. A blast happens. Behind them, a new demon appears, and this demon is upper rank 3. Holy smokes. We've never seen any demon this highly ranked since Muzan himself. This is as close as we've gotten. What were your thoughts when he showed up?
I was just very much like upper 3. Like, we not only have not met any of the upper ranks, but we're getting upper 3. We're not even getting upper 6, 5, or 4. So like my heart dropped because I didn't know much about the story other than like having seen season 1 when I was watching this the first time. I wasn't like in the fandom yet. I didn't know how emotional people were after that movie. But like I knew that something was about to happen, and like my immediate thought was someone's going to die. Like I was hopeful that we could, you know, possibly beat this guy, but it feels like that might not happen because we've jumped really far ahead of what we've been fighting so far. And it's very ominous and it's very scary. And literally, like, the first thing he does is try to kill Tanjiro. Like, this guy means business. And I obviously don't like him because of what he did.
Yeah, I think, Akaza's first moments on screen are, chilling, if you will, right? Like, to look and see, in the blink of an eye, essentially, the mood shifts from like, oh, okay, like he's kind of getting like a little bit better, right? Tanjiro just developed a new skill, closing wounds. Excellent. Like he's gonna be like, this is a good learning point. Like, all right, we're gonna hang up the Haori for today and we're gonna go home. Absolutely not. We're gonna pick right back up. And now we have this, human-sized Spalding ball on our screens as a basketball. Like quite literally, Akaza definitely scared me, kind of a little bit beyond belief, because I think that he has this like presence about him. I think it's kind of the way they do his eyelashes. If you look, that they're very furry and they're very like defined, and I think that just kind of gives him a different edge about his eyes and the way that his eyes are formed. Maybe it's just a small animation detail I'm geeking out over, but I think it's just kind of a thing that kind of sets him apart from the rest of the demons, that you don't see many of them with eyelashes that are so well defined.
Eyelashes on fleek. I don't even know what that means. I'm not gonna lie. I'm trying to stall again, but
Same.
Akaza is chilling. I think that is the right word. He introduces himself as Akaza, and the silence of the moment, like I feel like people don't always appreciate the scores until there's silence. And it can be used really, really effectively too. And it's like something is wrong, like something is about to happen. Here he is, upper rank 3. And like you said, somebody is probably not going to make it. And it's hard to say because obviously this show started off like up here, and it's like immediately Tanjiro's entire family is slaughtered. So we know that that's something that these showrunners and that the author is willing to do right away. But it is hard to say because a lot of animes, like the hero can pull through and they can win against all odds. And technically they just did, they just beat Enmu, who was one of the 12 Kazuki, but they're already in rough shape. They're not doing so well. Like we just said, Zenitsu's out, and Inosuke's off, like not paying attention. Tanjiro's injured, and even though Rengoku is like relatively fine at this point, he still did just kind of carry like 5 cars on his own and come up with the entire plan. So he's, I'm sure, probably tired at this point as well. So Akaza introduces himself. Rengoku quickly makes the first move and slices his arm, but Akaza's able to heal it right back in moments. Probably the fastest healing that we've seen. He begins to goad Rengoku because he's kind of pleased that he was able to like land a blow on him at all, and he's trying to convince him to turn into a demon himself so that he can be young and beautiful and strong forever. Rengoku responds in this moment and says that growing old and dying are parts of being human and that they're beautiful. We've talked about choices before in this show, and this is one of those arguments, again, where I could probably see how each of them come to their own conclusion. Who are you more inclined to agree with? The possibility of immortality or the frail nature of humanity, knowing what you have to give up to have either?
I mean, I think it's a very tough call, right? Like, obviously, as humans, like, and for me specifically, I always like to think like it'd be amazing to be immortal, to experience the world as a continual progression. However, I think it's part of like the fragile nature of humans that there is a lot more meaning in life because you have to live every moment with the thought knowing that you're going to be able or that you might not be around for many more moments like this. And I think it's a really important, it kind of goes back to the umai, and people are like, oh, well, like umai is not something you'd use at like a regular meal. But I feel like culturally at this point, right? Like I want to live like Rengoku. Like I want to say umai at every meal because it's like the recognition of that everything you do like has a small certain meaning and you can put joy in that. And I think that's kind of why I end up like agreeing with Rengoku is that things have more meaning when they're based on the context around them and the possibility that you might never be able to do that again. Like, I mean, even looking at the Demon Slayer premiere we were just at, right? Like the Rengoku mindset, we may never get to go back to that if there's nothing ever, or we can't get tickets next time. So like we enjoyed that to our absolute 100% because we knew Big Bro Rengoku was watching over us.
No. And he was. They kept on bringing him up.
He got such loud cheers every time too. Everybody loves that boy.
Yeah, what's not to love, honestly. I think it is a hard. It's hard to put yourself in the shoes of having that conversation. I think because like we're in the real world where immortality doesn't exist really, you know. So like we never feel like we're gonna be in that situation, and we're also not fighting and putting our lives on the line every day to protect people. You know, we're living quiet lives, working, you know, corporate 9-to-5s and talking about our favorite TV shows like we don't have a care in the world. When Rengoku is someone who, like, the reason he says umai is because like he genuinely, every meal that he has could really be his last. He's on a mission, you know, like he knows that he could die. Like you never know what can happen. So I think it's kind of hard when you're put in this situation where you're greeted with such a strong foe. And Rengoku mentions it. He's like, the aura of this demon is an upper rank. Like, wow, like he's surprised for the first time that we've seen. What do you do? Like, obviously he's been trained up with this mindset and he's very strong in his opinion, but like who else would be like, you know what, like I can't fight you, maybe I should become a demon, you know? And it's like it's hard to put yourself in that situation because like I'm the type of person where I feel like I would probably lean towards being like, okay, yeah, I'll live forever, I don't want to die right now, cool, thanks. But also you have Rengoku who, like Tanjiro, is just such a beautiful soul. Like the thought of becoming a demon and having to eat humans when you've been protecting them for so long is like, it's not worth it. Like they know that they might not be like Nezuko and might not be able to, you know, sleep to regain their strength. So there's a lot of components to it. But I think to kind of go off the question, it just kind of shows Rengoku's character of being just such a good human being as well, that he stands firm in it. He doesn't even think. He knows, he's like, being a fragile human is beautiful. That's the way life is supposed to be. It's what makes things so powerful and what makes moments so incredible, you know. So shout out to Rengoku for saying that, because I feel like if I were in his shoes, I wouldn't be able to answer quite that way.
Yeah, it was like he didn't even have to think about it. He just already knew. Like and that's probably part of being a Hashira as well, is like they know what they're sworn to uphold. And it's that humanity, while fragile, is beautiful and fleeting. And this is part of it. And that in immortality, that's lost. So good answer. Good answer, Rengoku. So obviously he refuses and the real fight begins. I have to give an early shout out here to the score of this moment, because as we've just said, the silence was deafening that was happening here, and then this song kicks in and we all know exactly which one this is, because I think that again this was part of what made it chilling. The score doesn't often invoke human voices, and we have like a very distinct, and it's interesting that it's like an auto-tuned voice as well, but this song really does well to score the fight and the power, I think, of Akaza and his immediate turn into this battle. When I saw this in the theater, everyone was holding their breath. So again, I just want to offer like a huge shout out to the composers of this, because it really helps to make this fight larger than life. Even Tanjiro admits as this begins happening that he can't keep up with the movements that they're making. What were your thoughts on this first hardcore Hashira fight?
Oh my gosh. Agreed on the OST. I feel like we don't talk about it enough, but the Demon Slayer OST doesn't miss. It's so good. It is so good. And I think it's only going to continue to get better. I really like how Akaza's theme is very unique. Like you said, it's got like those auto-tune voices, and then you also add in like Rengoku's theme with it, and it meshes so well together. And Rengoku's theme has been established. We've heard it a few times, and then like they put it together. And like a good OST will just elevate a scene, and that's exactly what it does. You get the idea that this is going to be intense. You get the idea that this is going to be important. So like also shout out to the composer, amazing job. But on top of that, the fight itself it's what Demon Slayer does so well. Like I think we can agree that like the fight scenes are one of its biggest strengths. You know, Ufotable is just killing it with, you know, their animation. And I think this is, you know, the first fight scene that I really could not take my eyes off of. It's fast, it's big, there's different things happening. You also get like reminded that Tanjiro like is just sitting there watching because that's all he can do. And it's like they're moving so fast. We haven't seen Hashira's fight like this yet, because all of the Hashira fights that we've seen, they've been dominating because they've been up against weaker foes. So it's really stepping up the game. It's really, you know, stepping up the animation. And I could go on about the fight scene forever because it's one of my favorite moments from the show altogether so far. It's just so well done all around. The emotions, the music, the animation, the hype, all of it, it was just 10 out of 10. Like I cannot think of a way to make this better than it is.
Yeah, piggybacking off of kind of where you were, Hannah, you know, saying about like the other Hashira fights that we've had, right? We've seen Giyu, you know, kind of roll up to Mount Naragumo, and that was a very quick scene, right? You know, Tanjiro had just done his, you know, Kamikagura for the first time. He thought he had Rui. Rui was like, got you. And then Giyu walked in and was like, got you. And then he like dead calmed his way out of it. And like, it was one swipe and we're done. Like the finality of that moment was, you know, obviously very easy to figure out, but also you looked at it and you were like, damn. Like, Giyu must be very strong. And then, you know, we've seen Shinobu fight a little bit, right? When she was against that demon who's like, oh, I just want to be your friend. I just want to get to know you. And then, of course, right, she handles the rest of the situation with the entire poison. We've seen these Hashira do somewhat incredible things in very small amounts of time. And Rengoku is no different. But this is on a new scale, because now you can see that Rengoku's breaking a sweat. Like, you can tell he's nervous at this point. And he's like, these may be my last moments. And I think that's what's really hard to cope with, is that, like, you know, you're getting the sense that even the most powerful character out of our like protagonist selection here is starting to have a bit of a struggle. And it's hard to kind of cope with that as an audience member, kind of almost watching the train derail itself, if you will, because you know that like he's giving his best and he's only trying to keep the rest of the squad alive and all the other passengers at that point. So it's definitely a very, very tough scene to kind of watch progress.
It really is. He's going at it 100% at this point. And so I think for the first time, this is where we as the audience can see that there are consequences to fighting the upper ranked demons, and that this isn't just going to be an easy thing. So far, it seemed like the Hashira are untouchable. Like you said, like even the fights that our boys were struggling in, like they were able to step in pretty seamlessly and kind of do it in one motion anytime that they've needed to, which made them seem like they were on another level. And up until now, even Rengoku kind of has seemed that way. You know, we got his little prequel episode, which was a great little introduction. He took that one out easily. He was able to defend 5 cars just now, and probably he could have also been the one to go take care of Enmu, I'm sure. He chose not to actually protect the people and to, I think, give Tanjiro and Inosuke a chance to shine, but he could have done it easily. He, like you said, Bryan is struggling here a little bit. He's having to like really hold his own, so it's hard to see that. Because it's hard for like what does hope mean again in this show if like the strongest of the strong can't beat these top 3? Will the demons win? It's a good question.
Yeah, because like, and I'll admit, the first time I was watching this show, I remember thinking kind of like these Hashira just seem like this is like why haven't we just slayed all the demons? Like this seems too easy, and obviously those were lower moons, so it's like it's very different, and they already slayed one to become a Hashira, so that's easy for them. But this really changes the story. Like we're finally seeing, okay, so this is actually difficult, and it's important for sure.
Yep. And this is a nod back to even some of Enmu's last words. The upper ranks have been there for hundreds of years. So why? This is why. After several moments of this fight, we see beautiful flame fighting forms from Rengoku. We see blood demon art from Akaza, and it goes on, and it's, as we've touched on, a completely stellar and beautifully animated fight scene. But the dust does have to settle eventually. It settles briefly, and Inosuke wonders if the fight is over, assuming that Rengoku won. Instead, we see both Rengoku and Akaza looking relatively fine, and Rengoku is exhausted, bloody, and weary. I think this is one of the first moments where I thought a Hashira might not stand a chance alone against a demon. Akaza once again tempts him to become a demon, to join him, to be strong, and to live and fight forever. He refuses. They continue to fight, and Akaza finally does land the killing blow, which is an arm straight through Rengoku's chest. This is only pain for me. What did you all think the first time that you saw this?
I can't make the "you shall know pain" reference here because I didn't see Naruto at that point, so I'm gonna save that reference for later. But I think this one's really tough because, you know, kind of like you said before we kind of got to this question, right? Like, what does hope mean at this point? And you're seeing that, and like for Tanjiro, like originally, right? Like he had this perception and like this, you know, small understanding of what his life trajectory was going to be, right? Like he was just going to grow up, have a nice little family in this small coal town and like, you know, have kids, you know, maybe they would go on like adventures to the city one day. That was like their big thing. Now, you know, he's watching after his family has been entirely crushed by a demon and now his sister's a demon. And, you know, this one person that he was like really hoping to get information out of at the start of the episode or the start of the movie, right? He was like, oh, he's going to teach me all about Hinokami Kagura. Like he's going to know what's up. He finds nothing, but at least he has like, hey, I will help you get stronger. And like, he already kind of has throughout the episode to start. And so like the culmination of everything Rengoku's done is now coming to an end quite literally. And it's really sad to see because he's already gotten so much from Rengoku. He learned about how to close his wounds with breathing. He's learned how to, you know, set your heart ablaze a little bit. And it's unfortunate that like Tanjiro now has to kind of accept, I guess, taking on the will of, you know, Rengoku's fire.
Yeah. This part of the fight was an emotional roller coaster for me. You know, you get the, like we talked about, you get the feeling earlier in this fight that like this might not go the way we want it to go. But then like they give you these moments of hope. You know, Rengoku is really giving it his all, and he has those little like moments where it feels like it's about to shift in like for him to start to, you know, take over the fight, because Akaza's been winning this whole time. You know, like it might be hard to admit it, but Akaza's just kind of playing with him. He's not even trying that hard, you know, and Rengoku is giving it his all. But we get these little moments. We get the first set your heart ablaze, you know, we see this fire go out throughout his entire body, and we think that it might switch, but it doesn't. And in my experience with anime, this doesn't happen very often. You don't get that hope, but then it still goes wrong. The only other anime I can think of that really gives us these moments a lot is Attack on Titan, where we feel like things are going to get better, but then it doesn't. And I think it's important though, because like we're seeing that no matter how far you can push yourself, at the end of the day, Rengoku was not strong enough to take him down. And it was so hard for me the first time to like see that dust settle and see his arm through him, because like I was really thinking that things were going to change, and that like somehow he was going to make it out of this alive, and that they were all going to be fine, and that Tanjiro was finally going to have that mentor that he needs so badly. But this isn't what happens, and this is real. The story taking this route is real, and as hard as it is, it's almost like I'm glad they went this route. I wish it wasn't Rengoku. I wish it was someone else, but I think it's important for the story to take it this route, because it's reminding us about the war that we're in, and it's reminding us that things can go wrong, and that, like I said earlier, that the Hashira aren't immortal. They aren't undefeatable. They can be defeated, because now we're up against this much stronger foe that we haven't met yet. So a lot of emotions, a lot, like just a roller coaster of everything, and it still doesn't get easier. I think every time I watch this, I'm a little bit more emotional over it, to be quite honest.
That's fair. I feel the same way. It's bad every single time. Because it couldn't be happening to somebody who deserves it any less, right? It's like, this is somebody who's dedicated their life to it, to only have it be cut short so soon. And yet they probably wouldn't change anything about it, because they felt like they were going out doing what they needed to do. So that being said, he's not gone quite yet, and he's going to give it everything he's got. He has nothing left to lose at this point. So against all odds, Rengoku summons all of his inner strength, and we get to see him kick some ass again. He screams with his blade drawn, and he begins to slice through Akaza's neck. It's slow going, but he makes progress and holds both of Akaza's arms, one in his stomach through sheer force of will, and one in his hand, screaming that he will at least not let him get away. The sun begins to rise, and Akaza starts to panic. What do you think of this last-ditch effort?
I mean, it's like I just said, like, it's still an emotional roller coaster, because you're hoping that he's at least going to take him down while he goes down. You know, like, you get this feeling like, okay, like, we're clearly about to lose Rengoku. There's no coming back from an arm straight through your body like that. But at least maybe we can take down Akaza with us. I do think it's important to know, I think that vision of his mom telling him to protect the weak because he was strong, that's what gave him the strength to do this. And that's really powerful, I think, because, you know, having that memory of a lost relative in your possible dying moments, I think the show's even touched on this. This can give you that kick that you need. It's like that light flashing before your eyes. But unfortunately, in his situation, unlike with Tanjiro during Hinokami, where he hadn't sustained the life-threatening injury yet, he was just about to die by the threads. For Rengoku, he was already too injured to survive, but it was so powerful. It showed his will. It showed how powerful family can be. We've seen that, you know, that theme a lot in the show of, you know, family helping you fight, truly. And it was so powerful. I had tears in my eyes watching it, just because it's truly a beautiful moment and still so hard.
It's all about family, as what's his face would say, Vin Diesel. I don't know his real name in the movie, but I think him and Rengoku would get along well. But I mean, looking at it, right, at this point, you know, like you said, there's no coming back from this. So Rengoku's like, all right, well, you know what? If I'm gonna die, I'm gonna at least go out with, you know, everything that I have left. And I think that's something that kind of hopefully will stick with Tanjiro, right? Because even if, Rengoku dies, his attitudes of, giving everything that you have until your last breath will stick on. Like, he literally was dying as like he was trying to still behead this demon, and he had a little bit of success, right? It's not like he completely failed here. Like, he was like, Akaza was also sweating too. He's like, oh shit, like, and I think people will, like, you can obviously say that like Rengoku like lost because he died. However, he still won in the sense that Akaza definitely underestimated him, and he was like, oh, I got this. Like, he was playing with him, yes, but then Rengoku was like, he still thinks I'm out of this. I'm gonna give it my best shot, and you saw him getting pretty close. Like, he was about halfway through Akaza's neck when he was still stuck in there. Yeah, of course, right? Like, you're going to give everything you have if you're that close, and like, how much pain you can hopefully prevent from the rest of the world, right? Like, especially knowing how many things that you've gone through at this point, like Rengoku is going to give it every last breath, or like every last piece of effort he has.
Yeah,
He surprised him. Like, this is the first time Akaza was truly surprised.
I think so. This is the first moment where he felt afraid. And even though he might not have been afraid necessarily of the actual fighting, he is afraid of the sun. And if Rengoku is able to just hold him there long enough, that's all he really needs to do, is just hold him until the sun can rise. And it's happening pretty quickly. So I think this is probably the closest Akaza has come to death in several hundred years, knowing that he is one of the elite few. And Rengoku just really did his best. Absolutely fueled. I'm not sure about the Vin Diesel comparison, but but absolutely, that family will help you fight. I love that. We do have to keep going. So unfortunately, Akaza does break free by force and takes off running into the woods, armless. We then hear a desperate plea from Tanjiro, who had tried to jump in with Inosuke to try to help Rengoku take him out, and they just don't make it quite in time. As Akaza is running away, Tanjiro sends his sword flying into the demon's chest, and he proclaims that Akaza is a coward, only fighting them in the dead of night where they have the advantage, and that even though Rengoku will die, he did not lose the battle because he carried out his duty and protected everyone on board the train. There were no casualties. What do you think of this monologue?
I just want to circle back to the trivia question that I made about Mugen Train, and how many people died in the Mugen Train arc movie? 1. And I mean, I think it's one of the more significant deaths in the entire show, if you look at it, right? And then this monologue that Tanjiro gives about him not losing, I know I kind of preempted to it earlier in my previous answer, but if you also look at it from the standpoint that Rengoku's a human, right? And, Akaza's going on and on about, demons are so strong and like we've lived so long, we'll be forever powerful. However, you almost just got sliced by that human you were taunting so like carelessly. And I think it really speaks to like how it seems as though these demons get the sense of superiority, that just because they are demons, they are that much higher up than the rest of the Hashira and the Demon Slayer Corps. But at this point, right, Tanjiro is letting him know, like, hey, like, all that crap you just said doesn't mean anything, because now you are sprinting out of here because we were able to at least trap you long enough so that way you knew your real enemy was on the way to the sun, and now you're terrified because you think that you're almost done. And like, no matter how powerless or weak you think we are, we still outwitted you to put you in this position.
All right, Hannah.
I'm getting teary-eyed just like seeing the monologue in my head, because I think this is one of my favorite moments in the entire series as a whole. I think that Tanjiro hasn't had the opportunity to grieve anything. He continues to put his life on the line. He continues to do all these things that we've talked about throughout the entirety of the story so far. And yes, he's cried multiple times. He's a boy who's in touch with his emotions. But at the end of the day, he hasn't really been able in real life to just break down. And this is what's happening. But he does it in such a powerful way, calling him a bastard, calling him a coward, reminding him that Rengoku didn't lose, that Akaza was a loser because he was running away. And as Akaza says, like, he's not running away from them, he's running away from the sun. So like Tanjiro is seeing red, as we know, but it's so sad to me, you know, that this is a mixture of grief that he's accepting that he's probably going to lose Rengoku at this point, although I don't think he's fully accepted it based off of what Rengoku says to him in a few moments here. But it's also that frustration. He's just trying and trying and trying and trying, but he could not jump in to save him, to protect him. And it's just like everything's boiling up to the surface for him right now, right in this very moment. And it's so hard to watch. He's a 15-year-old kid. He shouldn't be going through any of this. He shouldn't be screaming at this demon. He shouldn't be having to use a sword and, you know, all of this. And my brain goes a million different ways when it comes to this monologue, but I think it's one of the more powerful moments of the show because it reminds us just like what they're fighting for and what they're doing and what's on the line. And he's finally able to let it out after these couple of years and in such a powerful way. And I'll stop there before I cry some more.
It is certainly a powerful monologue, and it's hard because while Tanjiro is seeing red, he's not stupid, and he knows what's about to happen with Rengoku, and he's seen it firsthand far too much for a kid his age, just like you said, Hannah. But this is one of the first times where he can kind of like scream back and be like the kid that's on the inside and talk back to somebody, even though that's not generally in his nature. And in this moment, in one small regard, he's just like me for real because he can't stop crying while he's yelling at somebody. And
it's so relatable. Like it was so powerful that he was able to do that, but it's so relatable because we all want to do that, you know?
Absolutely. We've all had moments, maybe not exactly like this, but being so frustrated and so sad and so scared and so angry all at once that this is like the way that it has to come out. So at least what he had to say was extraordinarily eloquent. And I think it was really important that that was one of the last things that Rengoku gets to hear as well. Somebody, you know, confident in the ability of the Hashira, even after technically being defeated. So on that note, we are coming up on the end for real now here. And Rengoku's last moments are right here. I cry every single time. Every single time that I've watched this, it just gets worse for me. Because even in his dying moments, he is thinking about the people that are around him or the people that he cares about. And he offers kind words to Tanjiro and Inosuke and Zenitsu and Nezuko, telling them that he believes in all of them, and especially for Tanjiro, that he believes in him and his sister, which was not how the last time Tanjiro saw the Hashira that went down. Those are like high words of praise. He asks Tanjiro to send the news and his last words to his little brother and to his father. And then, before he fades away, he tells Tanjiro to set his heart ablaze, even in the moments where it may seem like there is no hope. And this is coming a little bit late in the sequence of the series, but this is like one of the key catchphrases moving forward, because you have to like be the one that's going to believe in yourself, and you have to keep going because somebody needs to do this, and people are going to die, and losses are going to be had in other ways as well, but you have to believe in yourself, and you have to give it everything you've got, and set your heart ablaze. And it's just beautiful, and it speaks for itself. So This is where it really comes into play for the first time. And then, as he's finally fading away, this is where he sees a vision of his mother again, who we know to be dead. And this is where I lose it every single time. He asks if he did well, using his strength to protect those who needed it, and she responds that he did splendidly. It's such a tearjerker moment. He's gone shortly after that. And I feel that this is one of the major inciting incidents for everything that we know comes after. And like we've talked about already a lot in this episode, this is one of the first deaths, aside from Tanjiro's family, that holds heavy meaning in the show and teaches us that even our Hashira are not safe and cannot always win against demons. What do you think of this sequence and of Rengoku's kind of graceful death?
Emily, that is a loaded question. I lose it during his monologue, during Tanjiro's monologue, but I think the moment I can truly pinpoint when I like fully lose it every time I see this is when he tells him that he believes in his little sister. After all that happened at the end of season 1, that there's something just so pure and beautiful about that. Having a Hashira say, like, I accept her as a member of the Demon Slayer Corps. I'm going to try and say this in Japanese. I hope I don't butcher it because I'm a little emotional right now. But kokoro moyase, set your heart ablaze, is such a powerful statement for anyone. And there's a reason that, like, it's a really popular tattoo that I'm probably going to get someday, because it's important for Tanjiro in this moment. And he uses this phrase so much throughout the entirety of the rest of the story. We're going to see it a lot in the next arc. But like, there can be so many meanings to it. I think we all go through things in life where we've been beaten down again and again, whether that's losing people that you love or losing your job or, you know, whatever can happen in life, because we're human and things happen. I think it's such a good reminder to keep going, to set your heart ablaze and move forward. And it can be so hard to do so. But it's such a beautiful thought to think of when that kind of thing is happening. I thought it was incredibly powerful that in his dying moments, instead of just kind of, you know, how would someone react in their dying moments and they're trying to talk, usually just be like, you know, sad, but he's choosing to help Tanjiro through these moments and to give him the strength that he needs to keep going, telling him that he believes in him, telling him to become a Hashira. The music, his mom, I think the first time I watched that's when I really lost it, was when he saw his mom in his literal dying moment. It's so hard to watch, but like, you can't take your eyes off of it because it's so beautiful and hauntingly beautiful, because we're losing someone that we've grown to love so quickly, and we're watching as Tanjiro just can't really accept what's happening, even though he knows what's going on. And it's so many emotions, but so powerful.
I think there's a lot here that there's to talk about. I kind of like, first, he stayed true to his self till the very end, calling Zenitsu yellow-haired boy, something like that. And then, right, like, him saying that he believes in all of them, and, you know, being able to get so much out of your final words, right? Like, he definitely had a lot to say before he, like, was ready to go. So I definitely think it's a very difficult moment for, you know, anyone who's gotten, you know, screen time with Rengoku at this point. And then, you know, being told that, you know, you are okay, you know, hey kid, you're not half bad, right? Like, it's a really, like, satisfying moment for Tanjiro to be recognized by the Hashira, because, you know, Gyu's recognized him. He's a little bit more cold, a little bit more standoffish, so maybe the validation doesn't stick as well. But Rengoku is, like, giving you his entire heart, like, quite literally. And so, you know, it's really amazing to kind of see, and like him for Set Your Heart Ablaze, like I think it's kind of like just speaking to Rengoku's, you know, like true mindset of life. Like if you're gonna live every moment here, you might as well burn your brightest while you're here. And so I think it's his like will that he's passing on to Tanjiro, that no matter how hard life gets, it's someone's got to carry the light of hope forward, and I'm passing that on to you essentially. And so I think it's a really cool thing, because Tanjiro then really steps into like his main character energy, I think, kind of from here, right? Like now he's had these two like extremely traumatic incidents that have like solidified his resolve to continue on this quest to defeat demons, right? And like he's had so many people now who are close to him be lost because of this tragedy. And so he really kind of has that final drive to like see the end of his goal because of how much he's gone through to even get this far, right? Like he's only taken down a handful of demons and compared to the entire history of demonhood.
Absolutely. He's just beginning, as one story comes to an end as well. And I love Rengoku, so this episode is like really hard for me. But I think one other thing that struck me before we kind of move on about this moment is that this is the first, like one of the first human deaths that we actually see happen on screen. And that even in such a cruel, like devastating world and such a painful injury that he must have sustained, that in some horrible way, there is like at least a tiny bit of comfort maybe to be found in like the next life kind of thing. And I've always been interested as a writer in this idea of how like the character of death is portrayed in different media, because in Western I feel like it's associated a lot with fear, because we don't really know like what that is or like what comes next. Nobody can tell us about that, so it's associated with like that emotion, I think, in particular. But it doesn't have to be that way every single time. And something that a lot of people do talk about, if they have like near death experiences, or anyone that's had an account, is that a lot of people do mention that they see somebody that they knew already, like in those final moments. And so Rengoku in this moment, seeing his mom, I'm kind of, in again a very sad and melancholy way, kind of obsessed with the idea that it's his mom that comes for him in place of that usual character. It's something familiar, it's something loving, and so he can gently go in peace. I really hope that that's what it's actually like, that it's something more like that. So all right, we did it. For the very last moment of the show, we see the Kasugai crows begin to deliver the news to the rest of the Hashira and to Ube-Yashiki. Each of them have a very different reaction to the news of Rengoku's death. Which reaction stuck with you the most?
I think for me, it's going to be Mitsuri's reaction. She was like so sad, and she was like devastated after that, because it was just like so hard for her to accept. Like, I think we've mentioned it a couple times before, like it's canon established that Mitsuri kind of trained under Rengoku for a little bit. So like it's definitely hard there to see that. And then I also kind of remember Muichiro's reaction. He was, for him, I assume that whenever, someone asks Muichiro a question, it's a rather blank answer. And this time I feel like from what we've seen of him, there was at least a little bit more emotion out of it. So you can tell, even though like people who, weren't in his like top like social circle, if you will, like they still had feelings for him. And, those feelings were really strong because of that wild and bold personality that he had. And clearly he had a positive impact on everyone who came, in contact with him because of how they feel about him now. So it's definitely everyone's reaction is very heartbreaking though.
I mean, I feel like I need to call out the crow itself crying. That literally again brings me to my knees. Like if I feel like I'm about to be okay, then I see that and I'm like, oh my God, because that was like his crow that has been with the family for generations. So yeah. But I think when I think about all their responses, Open Eyes actually sticks out to me the most because he's just like, I don't believe it. Like, I refuse to accept this. And he's one of those characters that we don't know much about at all. And the only impression we've had on him is kind of like he's kind of similar to Sanemi, just kind of bullying Tanjiro. And like Ubuyashiki even told him when he told Sanemi, like, stop bullying the younger Slayers. But I think it's interesting, and it just goes to show how much all of the Hashira truly care about him. But it's like he's like, I'm not even accepting of this, when all the others seem to kind of accept it because it seems like it's their, they know like this is gonna happen. They're sad about it, but like this is part of the job, is that you're gonna lose your comrades, and they've all already lost comrades and family, and so Open Eyes just really stuck out to me because he was so just like, I don't believe it.
Yeah. I think for me, the whole thing is like completely traumatic, and it's like every single reaction is a gut punch. And so the one that stands out the most to me is probably Giyu. And I don't know that it stands out in like, at least at the time, that like a good way. But he has like the least reaction out of anybody. And he, straight faced as always. Is that so? And like, that's kind of it. So I don't know if I have too many more thoughts on that, but it stood out to me in that he seemed the least surprised when the rest seemed relatively devastated. And maybe that's just how he shows his emotion. But
maybe more on that later.
Oh, I do think it's worth calling out Ubuyashiki's response too, just reaffirming everything that we've already known, that nobody died. Like, well, no passengers died on board the Mugen train, and none of the hopeful Tsugokus. So Rengoku did splendidly, and he said, I don't feel any sadness because I'm going to join him soon, which is also sad, but we kind of knew that one was coming at some point. So not yet. We still got a little bit more time with Ubuyashiki. More to come on that as well. And with that, we are definitely at about time. So does anyone have any last thoughts before we transition to our favorite moments? Okay, cool. Well, we saved this from the last episode to now, so we can talk about any of our particular favorite moments from any part of the Mugen Train movie. I'll go ahead and go first. I have to come back to Set Your Heart Ablaze and the introduction of what's going to be this like key catchphrase and belief system that is instilled in every human character that we have for the rest of the show. But getting to hear it in this context for this first moment, again, I called it an inciting incident, and I think that it absolutely is. It's like a combination of revenge, carrying the torch in more ways than one, and persevering and persisting against these demons and winning someday. We're not there yet, but everything that we've seen so far has led up to this being the belief system, and now it's here. So where can we go forward from here? And we have to go forward, even if it's sad, and even if things don't make sense, they have to go forward. So I think that it sends us off into the next season feeling a little bit better in spite of everything that's happened.
Yeah, I think this is kind of an obvious moment for me to call out, since I kind of foreshadowed that earlier as it being one of my favorite moments from the entire series, but it has to be Tanjiro's monologue to Akaza. It's so powerful, and being a Tanjiro stan, like my heart just breaks for him in this moment, and it's so well done. I didn't mention this before, but I really need to call out Hanai-san's voice acting for this moment. He's so good. He's so good at voice acting, and this moment in particular is so powerful. And I'd also like to call out, I think he has it memorized, because there is a video out there of him doing it live on a stage, and he does not look at the script once because of how powerful of a monologue it is. I think even I have it like kind of memorized in English, but it's, I think, a very important moment for Tanjiro as well as the story as a whole, and I could never shut up about it.
Yeah, I think for favorite moments, there's a lot, obviously. Smaller favorite moments, of course, Zenitsu's thunderclap and flash to save Nezuko, and his dream, but his spirit core. His spirit core was great. Absolutely feral Zenitsu on screen, bulgy eyeballs. You're not Nezuko. So that was pretty good. But like for a serious moment, surprisingly from me, Inosuke is going to take one of my favorite moments here. When he's crying at the very end, and he's like, "Come on, didn't you see everything he just taught us? He told us to keep going and living, and I'm not crying." And I was like, okay, maybe you could have omitted the last part. Maybe you could have accepted that you're crying, but still, like, he had the attitude, like, he just taught us everything that we kind of need to know going forward. Yes, he didn't teach us any new, like, breathing forms or, like, special techniques, but he taught us the will of being able to move forward. And I think that's kind of what's really cool about Rengoku is that, like, he didn't have to give them any sort of special training. He showed them what it meant to be, like, a Hashira level fighter, whether they're Hashira or not, right? They showed them that if you're going to be someone who's going to be a force for change in the Demon Slayer world, you have to be willing to step up to the plate, first off, and you have to be willing to accept the risks that come with it. And I think Rengoku's final moments telling him, you guys did well. You guys protected the train like I asked you to. Like, it's setting them up to be the heroes that, you know, everyone would want to be at their rescue, right? Like, it would be awesome to see Inosuke, Tanjiro, and Zenitsu rolling up to save you from, like, even like a burning building, not just demons. They're just become amazing people. So I think it's just a really powerful moment from are probably least in touch with their emotions character. So I think it's a good moment for Inosuke.
I'm glad you called that out because I forgot. And yeah, I think that's actually what got my sister crying the first time she watched this was Inosuke crying because it's so different for his character. Like you don't expect that. And it was just like, it's kind of painted as funny, but it's not. It's like, oh my gosh.
I know. Sweet little Inosuke crying so hard. It's coming out of the boar eyes too.
Oh. Right.
Which we have established is not where his regular eyes are also. I don't know
and we
if
have established
that
Tanjiro cleans that thing at least once a week because he can smell it.
Hopefully he does.
Stinky. All right, guys. Well, this movie is so extraordinarily well done. Even the episodic version is extraordinarily well done. I do think getting to see this in the theater for me was like one of the formative moments of like, oh my gosh, like between the story and the studio taking it on, we are in for such a treat with the rest of everything that is yet to come. And we've set up some real stakes as well moving forward. So we're looking forward to trudging right along. We're going to be starting Entertainment District with you all next week and Swordsmith Village soon to start thereafter. So we appreciate you all listening in. Thank you so much again for another great week. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, please don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and do all the things. If you do leave us a question in the comments, you might see us answer it in a future episode. And as Rengoku would say, umai.
Umai.
Umai! I tried to give it my best Rengoku impression.
Set your
just
heart
for
ablaze.
Big Bro.
Set your heart ablaze. Kokoro moyase.
Kokoro moyase. All right. Hello?